This is the August 2021 Parking Committee meeting. I'm going to call it to order. In attendance with me is Mr. Bernie Flynn, Mr. Nick Allen, and I'm Lisa Dorsey, Chair of the committee. We will start with comments, suggestions, petitions by residents not in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. Seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 3. Consider contract renewal for the garage management. And I'm going to let you take it from here, Mr. Metrick.
Thank you. We have two things on our agenda tonight that have to do with normal vendor relationships and agreements. This one is with our team that helps us manage Bicentennial and Chestnut Street garages. This relationship started 6 years ago. Forrest is here. They provide day-to-day management, cleaning services, and help us manage the transactions and the sale of monthly permits, as well as keeping track of maintenance items and ordering various maintenance, putting in maintenance calls for things that are happening at the garage. They also staff the garage when it's open. Borough's on the hook for capital improvements and any strategic decisions it wants to make about how the garage generally should be managed. That's it in a nutshell. This agreement expires typically every 12 months. It has been extended by 12 months by these kinds of extension agreements. There's two docs up on the website. One is the extension and the other one is the original agreement. You need both to understand all the nuances of the relationship we have with Impark. If you have any specific questions, Forrest is here too. They can ask. Those questions can be asked and answered.
I just have one. Any substantial changes to this? It's pretty much the same as it was last year.
Correct. It's pretty much the same. And in fact, the management fees are staying the same.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Recommendation 3.0. Any comments from the audience? Item number 4, consider contract for pay-by-phone services with Passport. I understand we didn't actually have a contract here, so we're implementing one.
Correct. When we went back and did our diligence to look at all of our vendor relationships, and we're still doing this with not only our vendors, but all the leasing arrangements we have, just to make sure we have written agreements that have been signed that are current. We discovered that we don't have a signed current agreement with Passport. That's the company that provides us with the client services and the back-end support for persons who want to park at our single space meters and pay with their phone app. It's a very convenient way to park for anybody who's listening and wants to download the app. That you do pay a 25% transaction fee, but you can virtually put coins in the meter anywhere you have a wireless connection. So that's very convenient for users. They charge a 25-cent transaction fee plus a 2.9% fee that comes off the top when do the monthly distribution from their payment system by check. They actually write a paper check. They take the 2.9% out of that, and it's monthly. Giggling because that's kind of school way to pay a client, but that's the way they work. Passport has a lot more capabilities that we're exploring with them right now, but we're not contemplating any change to the relationship right now. They're selling us on migrating into more of our payment platforms, but we're taking our time with those decisions. This is just basically to put in place what we're already doing with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Metrick. I have no additional questions. Mr. Flynn, Mr. Allen, anyone in the audience? 3.0 recommendation. Item number 5, consider contract for structural repairs to the Bicentennial Garage with Hudak Infrastructure with a base bid of $341,985 with no alternates.
Yeah, I can take this one again.
Thanks.
Al is not here, but I think I'm pretty well up to speed on this. I've learned a lot about how garages are constructed in these last 7.5 months. You have a post-tension poured-in-place concrete structure. That means that the steel that adds the structural support to the decks that you park on is tensioned right before the concrete gets poured. And it's very important that all that steel that's in your garage not corrode. So you have to pay very close attention to damage to the deck, and mostly problems in the joints of all of the concrete. All of the joint material has to be elastic and keep the water out. And a lot of the elastic material has reached the end of its useful life. So this bid is mostly to replace all of that elastic material throughout the garage. In some places, chisel out and repair damaged concrete where we have found exposed rebar. If you ever want to go around the parking garage at Bicentennial, you'll see yellow paint. Some of these areas on the parking deck, on all the floors, they're usually about the size of a footprint. They need to be patched and filled so that water and oxygen don't interact with the iron and the steel. We're also, for the there's also some sealant work that needs to be done on the front facade of the garage. This came in a little over budget, and we also bid to add alternates that would apply that would clean the exterior facade of the building and then apply a waterproof membrane system to the top level that's exposed to the weather. We did that at Chestnut Street Garage. I think we still want to do this, but we're not going to do it this year because this bid with that alternate added in, and that number, low alternate bid came in for the membrane at $134. Just keep that $134,000. Just keep that number in mind when I talk about capital planning later. We're not choosing to award those alternates right now because that would push our overall capital spending in 2021 over what council had budgeted, which the grand total was $880,000. So right now we're deferring about $80,000 of work in that capital plan and then trying to bring everything in at $800,000. And in order to do that, can't award these alternates, although it's work we want to do. So we're pushing waterproof membrane system and possibly the facade cleaning as is something we could bid again next year, but we're using this information to budget for next year. If awarded, and we hope it is, because the Hudak Infrastructure should sound familiar, that's the company we awarded the work in the Chestnut Street Garage, so it's nice to work with the same contractor. You build rapport, you build relationships. The same person from Impark manages both garages, so it's pretty seamless to do the two jobs with one company. I like that aspect of it. They are qualified bidder. They are the low bidder. That's about the extent of my knowledge of the bid right now. We're recommending awarding the base bid, $141,985, and refraining from the alternates at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Metrick. Mr. Flynn?
Only a question, Mr. Metrick, on the, if we're doing 341 for all the replacement of all the expansion joints in the building, I can understand why we're not going to do the water membrane on the top floor and the floor below, but the facade, the front facade of the building is only $14,000, as I read it. Front of that building, we're going to be caulking it. For $14,000, we still have money available to power wash the facade, waterproof it so it stops leaking into the chocolate store and everything down below. That makes sense to me to since we'll be well in budget, spend the 14,000 to waterproof the face of the building. What's your thoughts on it?
Not a bad idea. Why don't I put together some information for the committee to take to next Tuesday where you can see how all of the capital projects are coming in. We were over budget on the painting of the garages. We were under budget on Chestnut. I've dialed back the number of single space meters I'm going to recommend replacing in 2021 to push those into 2022 because I just want to hit that $800,000 number as best I can. I think if you added in the facade, you'd probably be, pending me actually giving you the numbers, probably around $825,000 spend for this year. That's assuming nothing goes wrong too. You have big capital projects, you never know. You might find a problem and then you start getting into unit costs for things to fix something that was discovered during projects. So I think there's some wisdom in waiting a little bit to.
I can appreciate that because the face of that building has been leaking for quite a while. So if the structural engineer actually thought that there could be some hidden problems on the building, it would be smart to stop. I agree with you.
Mr. Allen?
You answered all my questions with that, so thank you.
Anyone in the audience? Okay. It's like a 3-0.
Possible thinking about the additional ad
facade.
alternate? Okay.
Yeah. Item number 6, approve amendment number 5 into an agreement with the County of Chester to lease up to 60 spaces at the Chestnut Street Garage at a rate of $90 per month per space. The term of the agreement shall be September 1, 2021 to August 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Chester County renewing a lease it has had. I don't know when it started, but I think this might be amendment number. So it's been at least probably 5 years that this initiated. $90 per month per space is a daytime permit in Chestnut Street Garage. I believe that, I should know that do you know that, Forrest, off the top of your head, the time of day? I think it's like 8 a.m. in the morning to 9 at night. So you can park with that permit during those times in the garage. If you're parked in the garage at any other time, and we track you leaving the garage, we bill you for the overage at the rate for the parking garage. This meets Chester County's needs for their employees, and I've been speaking with their coordinator who needs to run it through the commissioners, and we're kind of doing it in parallel. I'm taking it to council here for its approval, and she's going to work with the commissioners on their approval. Whoever gets to the finish line first, it has to be signed on both sides.
Any questions about that? I'm good. It is 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Just for the record. Awesome, cool. We'll call it 2-0 until Ms. Dorsey's able to come back. Alrighty. And then we can move right ahead to item number 7 then.
Good evening. Forrest Freeman with Impark/Reef. Looking at the numbers, things keep coming up. Revenue, popping up, especially on the transient side for both facilities. Bicentennial tends to be a little bit more, but Chestnut Street is catching up at this point. The best news I think that we have is that we're actually beating July of 2019 transient, revenue as a whole. So we're going back 2 years ago, we were roughly $15,000 higher in transient revenue at Bicentennial, about $17,000 higher in Chestnut Street. So things are definitely coming back. I mean, we can look at the variance versus last year, but of COVID and nothing much was going on. So I would hope we look good. So overall, things are looking good. I mean, crossed with the Delta variant. continue to, that settles down and we don't have too much. On the monthly side, we pretty much break even, gain a few, but nothing overall that's really. So it's again not like anything where so we're losing parkers left and right. We did bring back 2 team members to help us with nights and weekends, especially heading in Friday, Saturdays, helping us with some of the crowd. Expense side, we're still keeping it. We're not 100% of where we were, trying to make sure we're spending prudently. I would say that on the versus last year, the expense that went up is credit card fees. So that's why we're favorable budget. Next slide is throwing in graphs. Average tickets issued per day is going up as the months go along. Bicentennial is top line, and next graph is revenue. Similar trend. Bicentennial seemed to level out a little bit more in July. That had a lot to do with the holiday. We just did scroll up just a little bit. Just ran some revenue numbers showing, transient revenue month over month from the beginning, showing the percentage increases still continuing. So, we had a huge jump obviously in February, but the fact that we're still 9.6% or 24% or 23 or 20 keeps growing every single month. That's going to continue the rest of the year unless something crazy across 2022, much more normal.
Thank you, Forrest.
All right. You?
Any questions?
I got one question for Forrest. In the Chestnut Street garage, I spoke briefly with Mr. Metric today. Get back to us with a better report. How many parking spaces do we have available in Chestnut Street? Do you remember?
600 and
689. How many of them would be allocated as a pure monthly 24/7? Do you have a number on that?
we do have a number. I say don't remember. It was a relatively small amount, much less than we would have anticipated. I can't think it's.
But do you think it's pretty low?
Relatively speaking, I mean, it's less than, I'll say 200. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
part of the garage, but it's
Yeah.
definitely less than 200.
So the weekly rate is much higher than, they come in, what, Monday to Friday, is that what it is?
Typically,
Okay, during just the work hours.
pretty much. That is the bulk of our parkers, is that Monday through Friday, daytime. We have a little bit that are on the 24/7 path and some on the overnight. The bulk of it really comes, and I can get the breakdown.
No,
But it's
we'll be
the bulk
talking
of
about it later,
Okay.
Because this thing is floating around about a wait list of people trying to get parking permits. Mr. Metric's going to work on that this next couple of weeks, whatever, to come up with a sensible way to explain how we can increase the permits based on,
Yeah, without, yeah.
yeah.
Sit down and
Mr.
discuss
Metric's
that.
going to work on it.
Yeah.
I just trying to figure out if you had your thumb on. So it's about 200,
Roughly.
24/7.
I can get the exact.
That's all right.
But yeah, but we can, again, that's, we can run.
Yeah.
hopefully come-
Well, that's guaranteed space. Out of 683, we have to guarantee at least 200. So, so it's only 400 some
Yeah.
spots that we can play with.
But there's oversell in that. So
Yeah.
not everybody who pays 24/7 is there all the time. So
Right.
they're not reserved spaces. So it's not like, this space belongs to this person.
Right.
So that gives us that ability to flow through it. And honestly, it's why we can have 1,000 parkers.
Right.
In a 6.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Yep.
Anything else? Mr. Allen? Anyone from the audience? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the director's report, Mr. Metrick.
Thank you very much. Westchester Borough Parking Committee, we're going to go through this pretty quickly. The two garages, and on slide 3, I took the usual report, and I took it and I printed it out for you so you could see it up close. This is an occupancy report. So this is someone going around the garage and counting how many spaces are available. And then I think with this information and what Forrest just told you, it's painting a pretty unique picture. I think there's a lot of availability in the garages, about half of Bicentennial's available, and about 2/3 of Chestnut Street Garage are available. They're empty spaces. But we're seeing a lot more people coming in for a short amount of time, paying for the parking for $1.50 an hour, paying the ticket and going out. We're seeing that transient revenue going up. So person going up and counting the spaces might be getting the same number, but they're different. It's a different 300 people parking there every 3-4 hours. So we're seeing transient revenue go up, and we're seeing a lot more usage. I didn't parse it out. Can't see it on this graph, but there's a lot of usage happening now Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights in the two garages. The big jump ups there, the big little hiccups, those are the snow days. And the perforated line shows you there is a generalized trend, albeit very slowly, of rising occupancy in the garages. And transient revenue is contributing to that. Transient revenue is also, I think, steeper, is increasing more steeply. But this is this is a 7-month view of what's been happening at the garages, kind of real steady, but not where we were 2 years ago with occupancy. So slide number 4 has just the conclusions that I mentioned there about occupancy. The garage revenue continues to exceed budget. We're about $100,000 ahead of where we expect it to be as of the end of July as to what we've booked, largely because we're doing better in those nighttime hours. So I wanted to talk a little bit about capital programming because I won't be with the meetings in your meetings tomorrow night because of a family thing. I know we're going to be talking a lot about capital programming. Right now, there are 5 capital projects that are in the hopper, so to speak, that were approved by council. We deferred one of these. That's the structural analysis for garages. I'm getting quotes on doing that and trying to bake that into the operating budget for parking department in 2022. I think that makes more rational sense for a professional service product to be paid for with operating dollars than capital. I just thought it was a little misplaced there. It also gives me a convenient way to cut about $80,000 out of this year's spend and get the numbers into budget. So were you to take that $80,000 out, the budgeted amount for this year would be $800,000, and our contracted amount to spend, this is specific to the prior conversation, not awarding the cleaning of the facade. We're at 805, so you'd be adding in 14.5, so you'd be up to about 820 for spend this year, assuming nothing goes wrong in the projects that are underway. And I have suggested cutting back on the parking meter upgrade in 2021 to do more of it in 2022 to make these numbers work better. So what are we doing next year? Going to be meter upgrade city in the borough. All your single space meters are going to get 4G technology. They're going to be able to talk to the mothership, at least until the wireless companies decide to make another change on us and pull the rug out from under us. But we're at least buying probably about 7-8 years of compatibility with this investment. It's about $325 a meter. So if I think of it as your ongoing capital cost to run a single space meter program, it's about 325 divided by 7, whatever that is per year. That's your per unit cost to keep these things in a good state of repair and updated. We're also at the end of the useful life of those dreaded enforcement units on the right there, dreaded by the public. We love them. They're very efficient. It's a cell phone wrapped with a heat activated printer. They're about $29.50 per unit, and with warranty, I think it comes out to about $3,400 per unit. We want 7 of them, and we're going to share with building and housing because we in parking, we like to share, know how to share our toys. And that means that our building and housing crew is going to be able to go out and write citations for the handful of things they enforce, things like snow and trash and stuff like that. We're also going to be sending these to the police department for overnight parking enforcement because right now they're handwriting tickets and creates 2 problems. The person who gets a handwritten ticket at 2 in the morning wakes up at 8 in the morning and goes online to try and pay it, and our clerk hasn't entered it in the system yet. They get frustrated that they can't pay their parking ticket. Now they're frustrated twice. That's not good. And the second thing is sometimes our police officers, you can't tell the difference between letter I and number 1. So there's a lot of misentering of information, and that can propagate into problems down the road if you, say, for instance, enter a license plate in wrong, but it's a valid license plate. Guess who gets a notice 2 weeks later that they were in violation of the Westchester Borough's parking ordinance? Person who lives in Pittsburgh. And so you get an angry phone call from somebody. It's like, I've never been to Westchester Borough. Why did I get this letter? So we want to polish out those wrinkles and fix that. And we're going to share our devices with the police department. I've already spoken to the chief about it. He's on board. And the last thing is the bicentennial roof coating that we mentioned. I used an average number from the bidders that submitted the bid. So I didn't use the low bid number because when you bid it again, you don't know what you're going to get. And I like to be a little, budget a little low on my revenues and a little high on my expenses, just as a matter of best practice. Not a lot, within, 3% or so. So that's the plan for next year. Pretty lightweight compared to what we did this year. We did $800,000 of work. We're planning on doing about $342,000 next year. I'm going to take a breath because there's only 2 more slides, or maybe you just want me to get this over with. I can do that too.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Those handheld investments, we've had a lot of conversations around parking passes and right now they're handwritten. And there was a discussion a couple months ago around being able to read a barcode or something like that. Can those handhelds be upgraded to do that?
That's a good question. The handhelds can already read a license plate automatically with the camera. There are some technologies that can be integrated with handheld enforcement, like radio frequency ID. But I've been looking into that, and I'm not so sure that's going to work. That's the technology that EasyPass uses. It works in applications where the right word, where the antenna is stationary, but the transponder is moving. For our enforcement purposes, it would be reversed. So you'd be driving down the street with the antenna in the car, and I've yet to see an antenna that's engineered to be stuck in a car, first of all, that's going to be bounced and jostled around. And typically the antennas have to be focused very directly on a very specific area that they know the car is going to come through, detect the thing that they're looking for. So I don't know if it's really going to work, and I don't know if it's going to break in a month because you kept it inside a car that gets 140 degrees in the summer. Not sure yet that tech works, but I'm looking at that, and I don't know if hang tag is the right solution either for guest passes. But if the committee wants to talk more about what we talked about this, about this maybe a standing item on the agenda where we can look at solutions in the next few months, I'm all for that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just a question for future consideration.
I have a quick question about the units as well. Is it, the issue now are the batteries just die too quickly and we can't replace them? Is that?
Yes, it's the battery inside the cell phone that's in the middle of it that is now 6 years old.
Are we able to replace batteries of these new versions? Do you know?
That's a good question. It's a Galaxy phone, and the vendor that we've been working with just recently went through a merger. So I'm dealing with a new salesperson, and I'm getting a quote on that. Talking to him on Monday next week. So I want to make sure that we're still buying buying what we need, that it works, and I'm with you. I want what's the catchphrase? I want something like the right to repair. Isn't that something with
Yeah.
mobile tech?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's good. And then I'm curious to know, I don't know if we know this yet, but in terms of like the operating system on these things, how open they are, whether you can only serve that, like run their software, or if we can do anything else, because if we can either print passes with QR codes on them, or like we do now, there's just a number, a unique number on each gas pass. And my thinking is if through their handheld they could type in that number or scan the number, which would be, preferred, but typing it, it's like 6 digits or something. And then if someone were to come in with a gas, we can talk about this another time maybe, but if somebody came in with a gas pass or said they lost a gas pass, our parking department could mark that specific number as invalid and then issue a new one. And then the person with the handheld could type in that number. And if it's one that they said was missing, then you ticket them. Is what I was thinking, but we can maybe put that on an agenda item for another month. But
Yeah, I follow your logic. Yeah.
yeah, I think
It's an Android-based phone,
yeah,
and it can run anything.
yeah. I think that'd be a good thing to ask these new folks for sure. Cool.
The last two slides have to do with the money. And I expanded this analysis to include all of our revenue and expense items. I'm not showing you that here, but I'm showing you that our three major revenue items, parking tickets, meters, and garages, it's the same old story that we've been telling all year long. The tickets are doing pretty well, although we backed off ticket revenue in July because we had a lot of downtime with the road paving. We're out. Our entire enforcement crew was putting temporary no parking signs out for a pretty big chunk of the month. So you see that reflected in reduced enforcement hours. Parking meters, don't get too excited because we booked $48,000 of coins in July that was collected in June. So just smooth that out a little bit, those June and July numbers. It is an upward trend though. And like Forrest said, parking garages are doing really well. We're 100K over revenue on our garages. We're at total about 86,000 over revenue on these three major, over budget on these three major revenue items. And for us to really land the plane, bring it home, so to speak, towards the end of the year, we need to see about 150,000 a month in meter revenue in September, October, November, December. So a lot of what's, I think there's a lot to pay attention to in the last third of the year and the impact that the return of our students are going to play in town. So I'm very curious. Again, this last slide here shows you how we've been trending. We're still above the red line, which is good news. Don't get too excited. We're not back to 2019 yet. That's just because we're holding on to some of that coin. I think what's interesting this summer is we didn't see the dip that we've seen in every prior summer. I think people are sticking close to home. I'm going with whatever theory works in my head. I think people are going out, they're doing things around town. But it'll remain to be seen if we can get back up to You see how the blue bar kind of escalates in September and October. I'm really curious if we're going to get there this year. I hope we do.
Mr. Dorsey, I have one question, Mr. Metrick. I didn't see any expenditures for kiosks. Just talked about meters. I thought we were going to start leaning towards the kiosks where we could collapse 5 or 6 meters into one kiosk. And they are very profitable.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're profitable and they also save on operating expenses. And part of the plan was to, I'll send you all details on this, purchase 3 multi-space meters this year and put them into the surface lots that we have in town. And then next year, purchase enough multi-space meters to swap the entire university area parking management system to multi-space meters. So at the end of the day, you're going to go from about 580 total single-space meters today to about 417. And you're going to realize operational savings a little bit north of $25,000 a year because of it.
I'm fully aware that they pay for themselves rather rapidly with minimal breakdown. So they work very well. The surface lot places, the majority of them, don't we have kiosks at them now? Or are you talking about the lots that are on Market Street, the smaller lots?
There's a lot on Chestnut and Darlington that has single space meters that should be swapped to multi-space. There's a lot on High Street next to the Methodist Church that has single space meters should be swapped, and another one on Market, the same side of the street as Miss Winnie's. It's a little downstream of it. East Market.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience? And the last, to approve the July 2021 meeting minutes. Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Dorsey, under other business, I can report to the committee that the contractor that was chosen to paint the handrails in Chestnut Street Garage and Bicentennial Garage finished today. I walked all the floors to check for mistakes, and we put blue tape where we found the mistakes, and they're repairing them as before they leave to go back to the western part of the state, but they did an excellent job. They had some blips. They kept setting off the fire alarms and getting people locked in the elevators and that kind of, I mean, things happen during construction projects. There's one item that I think we should take under consider, Forrest and Mr. Metrick, is that the contractor took it upon himself to lift the gate at Bicentennial Garage because the gate was not accepting the tickets. And once you lift the gate manually, it will not work automatically anymore. Am I correct, Forrest? Because there's going to be a significant cost to that, and there should be a back charge to the contractor because we never asked him to do that. Moving forward, we're going to pay his bill, whatever that is. I mean, he did it on his own to get his truck out and to let everybody else out of the garage. It could cost $10,000 to fix the thing. Who knows? Because it will not rework again automatically once you lift it up. So it's just a food for thought for that one. So make sure you report back to Mr. Metrick on the cost of repair for that, please. Thank you, Ms. Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Any other comments? Meeting adjourned at 7:32. Thank you.